So basically, could we start with just for the record? So as soon as when I start,
you start with questions
with your name and your date of birth.
Shall I do it now?
Yeah, you just talk to me.
No,
and
it's already there. Vito Maestranzi, born 1931, London, Clerkenwell. Is that enough?
That's fine. Can you tell me a bit about your dad?
Well, my dad came over in 1908 to relieve his dad work, and then he relieved him after 3 months. My granddad went back to Italy and left him here on his own to do his work, the knife grinding. And then 1911 he was called up by the Austrian army to do his national service. So he had to go back to Italy to do his national service, and my granddad came back to relieve him. Then 1914 he was just finishing his national service and went back. He says, I'll see you in 40 days, and he saw them after 6 years, his family, because he went back there and he got caught. He was on the Russian front. He got caught, made prisoner of war by the Russians, and was in Siberia, and he got back in Italy, in Trieste, April 1920, he got back into Italy.
And then from Italy, he didn't stay there, did he?
No, then he got back to his village, he saw his people, and after 3 months, he got back in April to Trieste, and then in July, I think June, July, he moved back to England. He came back to England. In 1920, July, I think, he came back to England because his work was here, there was no work out there.
Was he doing the same profession?
Same profession, yeah, same as he left.
There's a history of knife grinding from your area of what was Austria but now is Italy, in the Pinsola region.
Yeah, in the La Valle Rendena, Val Rendena.
Why is it in that area there?
Well, because everybody, like, you go the next valley, Val di Sol, they're all not wood choppers, they cut wood and that. Val di Non, they repair chairs and all that. They all got their own works, they started, maybe come down from generations. And they all had, not regions, valleys, even a small valley, they start that work and they all take on that. But the first grinders from the valley, they went to Vienna to learn to sharpen knives. They immigrated to Vienna and then come back, then they're all over the world now.
So along with the tradition of knife grinding in your family, there's also a tradition of coming over to England.
Yeah, my great uncle, he walked with his barrow, because he used to have the barrow, and worked as he walked, and then put it on the boat and came to England. And a lot of them, from here, they went over to America. They put the barrow onto the ship and went to America. A lot of from the valley there, because there's a lot of from America that are in America at the time now. And it's families.
And it's true to say that you keep the jobs in the family. So your granddad came over and relieved your dad, likewise your dad relieved your granddad.
And then we relieved my dad, and that's it.
So when your dad came back in 1920, he stayed here. He was here for like 19 years. So obviously he married here.
Well, he married in 1927. He went back to Italy and got married in 27, and then brought the wife over, my mother, and we were all born here. And we went back in 1939 to Italy.
And the reason you went back in 1939 was because of a marriage? An anniversary?
First was golden anniversary of my granddad, and then his younger sister was getting married. So he said, well, we might as well go back as a family and stay up there 3 or 4 months, because the anniversary was in June, and my sister, my aunt, was getting married in October or something. So he decided we go up there, and then when they start talking about war, and that at the end, in December, like that, he said, well, now if Italy goes to war with Germany, they were talking about Italy going to war with Germany. He said, they're going to close the passes, I'll be stuck here, and my work is over there. well, am I going to live on here during the war? There's nothing there to work, to keep a family. So he left us there with Grandad and that because he said safer here than coming back to London. And he came back. And then he got caught when Italy broke out. They went to war with Germany against England. He got interned in the Isle of Man for 5, and he stayed in there for 5 years.
How was the what was the process of his internment? Did he go home and the police were waiting for him, or did he?
Well, he got home from work, and the landlady there, she says, "Look, the police has been here today looking for you," and I told him more or less what time you're coming home, and they'll be back tonight. And they came back, and they asked him, but he says, I've got no politics. He says, I've done this and that in the last war. I've had enough of wars. He says, I don't want to know. But they said, tomorrow morning you pack your bags and tomorrow morning report to Oban police station, and that's it. And then from there they put him on a train to Liverpool, and from Liverpool he went to the Isle of Man.
He must have been, they offered him an alternative to the Isle of Man.
No, not to the Isle of Man. Once he was in the Isle of Man, yeah. Once he was in, after a year or two, they offered him to go out and work for the government, you know, in factories for the government. So he says, well, if I've got to work for the government, it must be for ammunitions or planes or something. I've got my family in Italy. He says, why should I go and work to do something that might be used to kill my family in Italy? So he says, no, I prefer to go and work in the fields, stay here and work in the fields, than going out and working in a factory.
And then he went, and in the Isle of Man, he went and worked out to the... It's like
he stayed the old lot, 5 years.
It was like a labour corps.
Yeah, they used to hire him out to these shilling a day. He used to get a shilling a day to these farmers. But at the beginning, they used to take him, you know, a soldier used to take him there, stay with him all day, and then take him back. After a while, they used to hire him out to farmers and let the farmers be responsible for him. And they used to come back in the evening to pick him up.
And he was also offered to be repatriated to Italy.
He was offered to be repatriated to Italy. I think it was after Italy collapsed. But he says, well, the war now can't be that long. He says, I go back to Italy, I can't come back, because that was the offer. You go back to Italy, but you won't get a permit to come back again. You know, that's what he was offered. So he said, all right, my family might be able to come back because they were born here, the kids. But the kids, we were still young. I was 12, 13. My brother, the oldest one, was 16. But at 16, you're not going to come back and what? Well, so he decided to stay. Well, he said it can't be carrying on wars. He's had enough of the wars. He says it must be finishing. So I might as well hold out till the end, and that's it, wait a bit more. I've waited 6 years to see my family in the last war. I might as well wait a bit more to see my family now. My family this time, or my family to see me.
Did you hear from him in the meantime?
From him. I think at the end he could write, but I don't think for 3 or 4 years, for 2 or 3 years at least, there was no information in writing.
So she had no idea that he was on the Isle of Man?
No, she knew he was in the Isle of Man. Once he got there, he must have wrote where he is and that, but after that, you know, the communications were very scarce. And then she heard this one that got repatriated, but he had no family. He had family up there, he had sisters and brothers, but he had no family of his own. So he said, yeah, I've been repatriated. He's from the village, from our village. And he came up, and then just after the war, he put himself up in Milan, you know. He's working in Milan.
So this gentleman who was on the Isle of Man with your dad,
yeah,
was from the same village?
Same village.
No family. He said, I don't, there's nothing for me here, I'll go. And so she heard the information.
And then she heard from him, yeah, that he was in the Isle of Man. She said, I haven't seen him now the last 2 or 3 months or something, but, you know, we met up, he's all right, you know, he's coping all right. Well, if he coped in Russia, he should cope in the Isle of Man, I think.
Goodness me. So what was it like for you being British born and then going back to Italy?
Well, look, at 8 years old, do what you're told, you know. They're doing it and that's the way to do it, but you don't think about anything. And then time to go back, you come back. And you come back here, you can't speak English anymore.
Was there any of the, say, xenophobia that people experienced over here, in terms of anti-Italian riots and the internment?
No, my cousins were here, but they were all sent down to Swindon, split up, you know, they split the family up, the kids. They sent 2 or 3 one family, 2 or 3 the other, because there was 5 of them at that time. There was 5 kids, so they weren't all kept together.
Did you experience any problems in in Italy when you was like at school or between the other?
No, not really. Just that we were speaking English, and that's it. So we stopped speaking English, and we lost it after 6 months. We weren't speaking English anymore.
So when you came back here,
I had to learn it again. It took me quite a while, but my brother and sister, they picked it up straight away.
So what was life like coming back to Britain then?
Well, you don't take any notice. I mean, the war up there, you're in a village, you're out of everything. Then you come here, you're in London. Yeah, the first my impression, go down the West End with my cousins and that to go to the cinema. That's all there was, to go to the cinema. And you go down Charing Cross Road and you got every nationality there. That was my first impression. The impression that's left with me was finding everybody there speaking different language, different people.
So did your dad teach you the skill of knife grinding?
Yeah, then after I started working with him in '54, because he had sciatica and that. So I started working with my brother in 1954. Up to then, I worked in restaurants. 49, up to 46 to 49, Waterloo, there, the Raiati. And then I got called up in the army to national service, come out in 1951, and then I worked down in Old Street, because the one that employed me there, he had his own restaurant by then. So he said, go and work down there with my wife and the other chef. And I worked there till 1953, 54, and then my dad gave up work. So I said, he was already 64, but his health wasn't all that.
So what's the life of a knife grinder like then? What does it involve?
Well, it involves you get up in the morning, you're always looking at that flipping clock. You're always looking at the clock because you're always late. And if you don't get there at one time, the chefs are gone, and that's how my life was. And after I retired about 7 years ago, I said I haven't got to look at that clock anymore. So if I don't do it today, I can do it tomorrow. But knife grinding, you've got your customers. If you don't do them today, you do them in 2 weeks' time. Because you can't go back tomorrow and do them because you've got somebody else to do.
Has it changed much the way that you've grinded knives? Your great uncle, when he came here, he had a barrow.
Well, my granddad.
How does the barrow work then?
Well, the barrow, they used to have a big wheel, and they used to have a small stone on it, and they used to turn the barrow up, the big wheel, they used to roll it. They used to go to Brixton and that from the Italian church, but they used to have maybe 2, so they used to leave one if it's a long way. They used to leave it there and then come back and use it a couple of days, and then they used the other one and leave it where it was. Like my dad had most of his work was in the city. So when he went in there. No, it was a pedal.
All right, so you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They used to turn the big wheel up, and then they used to pedal, and the big wheel they used to put a belt on it to the grindstone, and they used to pedal there and grind. The same thing. Standing up.
But then by the time you got around...
No, when I came back after the war, my dad come out of internment in 45, and he lost all his work in the city because the city was bombed. So he bought around of a Ferrari and he bought the van off of him.
So in the van it was already mechanised?
Yeah, you already had the machine doing it for you, making the stone go round. And, but I didn't work in it till 54 when he gave up. But with my brother, they had a nice big van, you could stand inside, and because the others, there was a cutout at the back, and you used to stand on the floor, you know, a small van, had everything in there, but with a cutout, and you used to stand non sotto l'acqua, you used to stand out of the rain, and that's it. That was the beginning of my dad's experience with a van, otherwise it was the wheelbarrow.
So it must have been a very difficult life for some of these knife grinders.
Oh yeah, it was a difficult life for them, because you were walking all day long pushing this barrow, because it's not easy.
And you're outside all the time.
Of course, you're under, all right, they might have used to gone under somewhere to, they got a lot, otherwise they got a hat on and they grind there.
Sure.
Where they were, in the street. Because it wasn't done in the street. And he said, I said, did you used to get a lot there? There used to be kids coming up, you know, sometimes, you know, to play games with him or something, but he never really got any. He always telling me he used to come down Ludgate Circus, he says, on a Saturday, and there was no traffic lights then. He said, so a copper used to see me come down from like St. Paul's there. He used to stop the traffic, there was no traffic to let him go. Come on, John, keep going with your barrow instead of having to stop to look if there's any traffic. The other one used to call him out. He used to say that.
They used to know him by first name as well.
Well, John, he was always John to them. They always called you John. That was the main thing. The cops, if they, all right, they knew your face, but they don't know your name, so you're John. Come on, John, keep going.